David, very welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much, Richie. How are you keeping?
Not too bad. How are you getting on, and how are your jealousy levels and envy levels given the amount of praise that has been thrown the way of Eoin Murphy the past 24 hours or so?
If it was about 10 years ago, I'd be a bitter man there, to be honest with you. If I was sub-goalie and he was in goal, I wouldn't be a happy man. No, I wouldn't. I don't care. If I'm a sub to him and he's playing well, I'm not a happy man. There's no two ways about it. I spent years looking at him. He came in onto the setup in 11 and 12 with myself. Like, Eoin is a fabulous lad, just first and foremost. He's an amazing lad. He came in with very little goalkeeping. He'd won a minor All-Ireland, I think, back in 2008, but had done very little else as far as goalkeeping. Came in with us. I remember before 11 final, we were playing Tip. He scored 3-3, ironically enough, against Peter O'Donovan, who's now the current selector or coach. And it was the last training session. I remember then lads were kind of thinking, Jesus, this lad is, he was third choice keeper behind myself, PJ, and then him. But he went outfield and he scored 3-3, and lads were like, Jesus, right. We didn't really know who he was because he'd come from the minor grades and the 20s, and we kind of stood up and went, Jesus, this lad can hurl. And in 12 then he was given a chance against Cork in the league. One of the first league games, Brian told him on the Friday night, he hadn't played outfield at all. He was sub-goalie in the Walsh Cup and in the first few rounds. Brian played him corner forward, took him off, I think, after 25 minutes or half time. And that was the end of his outfield experience. Yeah. And then he concentrated on goal. And then stupidly enough, after we played Tip in the semi-final, I got landed on my arse by Lar Corbett. Burke picked up the ball and headed into the back of the net. And the very next training session then, Brian asked me what Eoin was like. And if you could ever go back in a time machine and correct one statement, it would be the fact that I went along and said to him, whenever he gets the jersey, no one will ever take it off him. Basically, he's that good. Yeah. He was phenomenal. He was sub-goalie that year to me, but everything we do, I'd play a match and I wouldn't be happy with something, so I'd make sure that we designed some sort of a drill to try and rectify it, that I wouldn't make the same mistake the next day. But while I'd be doing it, he'd get it after minute 1 or minute 2. Like, he'd just be able to do something. Like, he's only small, he's probably 5'8", maybe, or 9, but he can catch balls going over the bar. And I couldn't get my head around him. Like, he was that good. Like, first training session 2013, so after that we went on. I stayed in goal obviously for the All-Ireland the drawn game and then the replay, and then in 2013 the very first training session, Brian and Martin Fogarty took me into the medical room and said change is happening, change happens. And that was that. Basically Eoin was going to be in for 2013, but they could see what I could see. His touch is off the charts. His reflex saves. I know he's the save, and he's getting the praise for that. But I thought the catch that he did going over the bar in the first half was just incredible. Like, there was a point where I was so depressed in looking at him and trying to find a way of beating him, getting back in ahead of him, that I went to the GPA. I went to Fran O'Reilly in the GPA, and not that he was kind of like a counsellor, but he was kind of like a counsellor. And he was to help the players. And I just said to him, Jesus, I don't know what to do. I was injured kind of on and off, and I was kind of going, I don't know how to get the better of him. And the only thing we kind of came up with eventually after about an hour and a half in the Crown Plaza was that I had more experience than him, which I kind of did. And that honestly helped me sleep at night. Anytime he'd do something amazing in a match, I'd kind of go, yeah, look, I've got more experience than him. He played very little in the goal, really. Between that minor and then the small bit then with Kilkenny seniors, he had very little experience. There was a few kind of balls that go into the square and there'd be a small bit of indecision because he wouldn't know whether to control or to call the full back to go for it or for him to go to it. That only happens with experience. But then by the end of 2 or 3 years, that's all he needed was that. And then he was always going to become the best keeper of all time. The only thing I'm surprised at is that he hasn't gotten Player of the Year. That's the only thing. I don't think there'll ever be a keeper like him. Anyone that's ever played with him knows how good he is.
So, like, basically that save 2 minutes into added time yesterday came as no surprise to you, or at least his ability to pull it off, because the sequence of events is just so quick, and like it's almost unfathomable to think that there is a thought process quick enough to allow that save to happen, that Peter Duggan gets his shot away as quickly as he does, completely on the volley, and then Eoin being able to throw himself up, being able to stick the hurl up in the air and tip it onto the bar. That it's in a flash, but it's no surprise to you.
None whatsoever, no. If you went back over the last, since he made his debut in 13, that's 10 years. I'd say you could put a 10-minute video together, and only a little fight about 10-second clips. You could put a 10-minute video together of all his saves. Like the amount of things that he's done over, he can pull off. No one's talking about the Shane O'Donnell save. It's routine enough, but it's just like, okay, I'm actually more surprised when someone scores a goal on him in a match. I rate him that. I think when I'm thinking of him, I just think I don't know how he's going to let in a goal. I just can't see him letting in a goal. So when someone does eventually score, I'm always then kind of critiquing, like, Jesus, how did they manage that? What they did. And he's another big surprise is that he's only got 3 All-Stars. I know he probably is red-hot favourite now for the 4th one, but he's taught like, and then when he brings that to the outfield, his ability to be able to come off the line, his first touch. You could see him on the ball. Even you remember in the Leinster final, there was a bit of a ruck happening around the 21. He raced out, he won it, just burst out of it. He's an incredible explosive speed. He's just all around. And again, I was reading books on this about, to try and get my head right about Eoin Murphy, that Jesus, it's the book that basically you're born with certain things.
Yeah.
Like I tried to do everything I could between 13 and 14 to get back into goal, and I nearly stopped eating any kind of sweets. I got myself down to 5% body fat just to try and be better. That's what I was thinking. I was trying to do box jumps. I had my own personal trainer, and in the end I just had to kind of admit that you cannot catch a ball going over the bar like him. Like you can't do what he's doing. You have your own attributes and your own skills, and maybe yours is communication, or yours is maybe puck out the distance in your pocket, which would have been a small bit longer than his. But to try and do what he's doing, no one can do it. Certain people are born with these. I don't know what the book is. It's kind of like it goes back to the kind of why sprinters, why a lot of them are from they're African Americans, whatever. They have that ability. Why certain lads are brilliant swimmers. It's in their genes basically. And Eoin has one of these lads that has whatever reactionary saves that he can pull off. The two-handed save. I was at home there last night, trying to think, right, someone's taking a shot, what would I do? I'm definitely flat-footed. I'll definitely try and go out with one hurl, but it's in the back of the net by the time I react. Yeah. If he's able to get 2 hands, jump up into the air, do a swivel, tip it onto the crossbar, and then jump straight back up again, and then have the thought process, well, that's still going on in your head. The next thing he does then is pick out Adrian Mullen, who's marking Mark Rogers, as a complete mismatch on one side of the field, when clearly probably the safety thing to do would be to launch it down on top of Wally Welch. But he sees this, picks out Adrian Mullen, who picks out Pádraig Welch, who gets the insurance point there of put Kilkenny 3 points ahead, which ensures that the game is probably going to go to extra time, but definitely don't lose it. That's probably nearly even more impressive.
Did you ever speak to? We'll get onto the match itself, but I'm interested in this. Did you ever speak to other goalkeepers, maybe not necessarily Kilkenny goalkeepers, maybe not even necessarily hurling goalkeepers, to talk about that position of essentially just being in one-on-one combat with somebody else, or maybe there's someone else in the mix as well for that position, or even dealing with not being able to get back in the team? I know you went to the GPA, but there's a different mindset about being a goalkeeper. There's a lot of funneling of thought and funneling of time, whereby you've got all the time in the world until suddenly you don't on the pitch, and you suddenly have to make that snap decision out of nowhere, what way to go and try and make a save. Did you ever speak to any of your fellow goalkeepers about that kind of stuff?
James McGarry would have been our support. He would have probably done a few drills with us, so he would have been kind of the goalkeeping coach. But I suppose James wouldn't have been the easiest man to talk to. I know I texted him after one match when Tipperary scored 5 goals. And I was kind of going, "Can you just talk me through the 5 goals?" He never got back to me. That was just I suppose the thought process around Kilkenny would have always been, when I came in initially on the whole goalkeeping side of things, I remember asking Martin Fogarty, can I go and goal for training? Just to puck around before training, because James and PJ Ryan used to just puck the ball across the field. before training. Big high balls, and there's leathering balls about 50, 60 yards away from each other, just low along the ground and high. And I was just I used to think to myself, well, like, the first while I was in, can I just, it probably would be better if the goalie did at some point step into the goal before a match. So I asked Martin, could I do it? And I was basically told, PJ and James don't do it. So it was frowned upon for me to go into the goal. Even before training, the time moves on, obviously, and then when Owen came in, we'd have very good battles up there. The only thing I would say was Owen did pick up a lot of injuries. He's picked up a fair few concussions in his time between playing outfield and stuff. So there was always a chance that he'd get back in again. But even in 14, I trained like a dog. Between 13, I wasn't in goal, and 13 was dropped. Between 13 and 14, I trained, never took a minute off, and went straight. Basically hit the ground running in 14, and then we had a nice little battle again where we were switched over every second game between Walsh Cup and League. I made a mistake against Dublin, he got back in again, but then he got injured against Galway after 7 minutes in the Leinster semi-final, and I got back in then for the Leinster final and the All-Ireland semi-final. So that was probably the biggest. If I could pick one highlight of my own career, is the fact that I kept him off the field, or kept him off the team for 2 matches anyway. I would have liked to have gotten the final, but he was phenomenal in that between that semi-final and final again. He was brilliant. But I was looking up during that time. I honestly, I'd be looking up videos online. I'd be looking up sub goalies. So basically, I remember getting kind of a bit of enjoyment. I think it was some Arabian lad was brought on in the 88th minute, a sub goalie. But I was watching videos just to try and show that, like, this actually does happen. Yeah. That you do get back in if you're a sub goalie and stuff like that. But I was finding anything anywhere to give me a bit of hope that this lad would eventually give me a chance. So I don't pity the likes of Darren Brennan, who's there as sub goalie. But there's always, like I said, there's always just that small bit of a hope. Not hope, as a sub goalie. Owen does pick up injuries, the way he plays, the way kind of he throws himself around the place, it can happen. But it's a terrible position. It's really horrible. Like, even getting dropped for the final in 14, Pádraig Welch was dropped and I was dropped. And I remember picking potatoes, like crying my eyes out the day before the All-Ireland. And I texted Pádraig just basically, you can come on. But in my own head, I was like, Jesus, you're never going to play with Kilkenny again. Like, just the thoughts of, it was such a lonely position, sub goalie. It is horrible. You get such a miserable amount of time on the field of play, and you just got to put in all the work. And yet you've got to be so ready before a match, because at any point, Jesus, a stray sitter before a match can crack, which happened before in a club game, can crack a keeper in the sore place, and he can drop down and you're in. Like, you just have to be ready. And it's a very unselfish. It's a position where you just have to keep your thoughts together. The only thing I would ever say to a sub goalie is as well, and I did speak to Alan Nolan about this, because I would have lived in Dublin. I would have met Alan a few times and stuff, and I would have said to him, as long as you're in the championship, you have a chance of playing. So just keep the head, basically. Remember, that was in 13, and that's what I'd say to any sub keeper. You always have a chance of playing once you stay in championship, but just don't regret, don't not put in the preparation, get a chance and then blow it. You need to be on the ball the whole time as a sub keeper.
That concludes our therapy session for today. David, delighted to. We'll see you next week. No, we'll get on to the match itself, because the save aside, like, it was an incredible spectacle yesterday, for the fact that it was so ebb and flow, and there were different elements to it. There was the use of the sweeper system in the first half by Clare, but what strikes me is that we've gotten to essentially an All-Ireland final in a couple of weeks' time with Kilkenny there, and this is all Derek Lyng's first season in charge, and it doesn't seem to have been any major. People were worried about this massive transition that there might be between Brian Cody and himself. It hasn't happened. The seamless transition has been quite something to behold over the past few months, and I think you saw that in microcosm yesterday. I thought he was phenomenal. I sat in row G directly behind the selectors yesterday. I'm delighted I did. I was going to move because I thought we'd get absolutely drowned in the game, and we didn't. And I just looking at him, the way he works the line, the way he seems in complete control, the difference between himself as a manager as well, and what I noticed kind of with a lot of managers, they're there. A lot of what they do is just roaring and bawling and shouting. There's not, come on lads, and let's keep going. And there's absolutely nothing to what they're saying. He was, at different stages, he was directing just small little calls,
getting small little messages into the halfbacks. I remember at one point Eoin Murphy came over, ran over to him and just asked him a question. He was like, just calm and collected, gave him what he wanted then. I just even thought that was so refreshing as well, to see that there's an openness there to kind of come over and go, what should I do here? Okay, perfect. Gave us few cents and back he went again. He was directing traffic. I remember then kind of just second half when Clare were getting on top. Again, no roaring, no wastage of energy on the sideline, giving out to referees. He'd have a few bits of words there maybe to the linesman, all right, but again in a very kind of a controlled manner, just like, we've noticed that, I'm not happy with that, and the linesman would say, basically that's fair enough. But he came over then to the rest of the selectors and he was like, we need energy, and that was it. Just, we need energy, go sort whatever. We've clearly worked on this, we've clearly spoken about this. And then they went with Cian Kenny, Wally Welch, and again I thought the two boys, the two boys changed up the way the game was played then. Wally Welch was an outlet on that half forward and trim win ball, and Cian Kenny came deep, and Kilkenny then stopped driving long ball up. They started playing the ball through Cian Kenny, and then were able to get that ball over the wall and back into the full forward line. But he brings with a massive amount of experience. Like, you can look at him as a rookie manager in one way, but he's been involved player in was that 10 yesterday was his 17th All-Ireland semi-final between player, selector and manager, and he's won 14 of them now. So like, he's a lot of experience there between everything. He's been in the dressing room, he knows what it takes. It's not like he's coming in just off the back of managing some sort of a club team and now he's in charge of Kilkenny. He's done his time there as selector for 6 years, has learned a huge amount of how things are done right and wrong the day of a match from his own time, and then obviously being in the dressing room, how the players are feeling. He's only retired back since 2010. There's not a whole lot of time there, and then on top of that, he's prepared a team to win an All-Ireland, and Kilkenny hadn't won an All-Ireland in God knows how many years, between senior, minor and under 20, and he came along and broke that back. So it is incredible how seamless the whole transition has been. I'm amazed. But it's obviously, I know he's had his own bit of fortune there with the whole Killian Buckley goal there the last day. But to get into 3 finals in your first year as manager just shows what an incredible job he has done.
Absolutely. I have to ask about that sweeper system deployed by Clare in the first half. Like, you played in Kilkenny, and when as a Kilkenny team, not in their pomp, but you played in the Kilkenny team that was in their pomp. When you saw a side deploy a sweeper like that, do you think that's conceding I guess the front foot nature of the game to a side like Kilkenny yesterday? Because it felt like you're kind of saying, well, we know what's going to come from ye, we're going to factor against that. That seems to be putting yourself on the back foot immediately, and that pretty much seemed to be the case in the first half from Clare yesterday. It did,
and they haven't done it all year. I would kind of wonder if it's counteractive here now, what I'm going to say, or kind of productive, that yes, you have Richie Reid clearing the ball on one side of the field, and because of that he's getting great balls into the full forward line with TJ Reid and Owen Cody there, and they're running at Clare, and they look like they're going to get goals at any second. They're going to get goals, which is exactly then why Brian Blown put a sweeper in there. And maybe if they hadn't put a sweeper in there, Kilkenny would have had 3 goals up at half time, and then you could go back and again, all the armchair critics would turn around and go, well, why didn't they put in a sweeper? You saw they scored 4 goals against Galway. You saw the damage that Dublin were doing against Clare. Maybe we should have had a sweeper in. I would give a huge amount of credit to Brian Lohan for changing it up at half time and not going along and just saying, right, this is not working, let's keep doing what we're doing. And he got enough stick there when he was playing Cian Nolan on Gillane in the Munster final, but he actually changed it up at half time. He pushed up in the second half and things went well. And who knows, just the way that Kilkenny team were playing in the first half, they easily could have had another goal or 2. Again, it's all about time, and if Mark Rodgers gets that goal, if Conor Fogarty gives up that block and the ball's in the back of the net, no one's talking about the sweeper system. It's just it's the small little moments happen in the game, and then everyone reacts and everything is done incorrectly. Eoin Murphy doesn't make that save and Clare score that goal, and just say they go on to win the game by a point or in after extra time, and everyone's then talking about what a genius Brian Lohan was then for playing a sweeper in the first half, but changing up, having the kind of the calmness and the composure then to go along and understand, right, this is not going well, let's change it up in the second half. But he didn't, and now everyone's going back to the sweeper system. It probably wasn't, in hindsight, it wasn't a great idea. If you were playing against Kilkenny and they play with a sweeper system, it depends on the type of play. Some teams do it, and I know that's the way they play it. Like they are excellent then at working the ball out in their trees, in their triangles, working it out and shooting from distance. They're phenomenal at it. A lot of teams can do that. But then there's other teams where right, they're actually shitting themselves here, and they're deploying the sweeper because of that. So I would say there was a little bit more of Clare were just very fearful that Kilkenny team, with the amount of goals that they'd gotten off Mossy Keoghan, there was 8 goals between Mossy Keoghan and Owen Cody heading into the match. I think they were just fearful, especially after the Leinster final. Kilkenny, this game could be over if Kilkenny got cracked in 2 or 3 goals.
Going into a semi-final fearful though of the other side, you don't necessarily want to do that. Like, that is starting on the back foot. You're better off putting yourself forward, and God knows Clare had the horses to do that, as they showed, I guess, in that first period of the second half, that they could, when they were actually playing their own game, they could put it up to a side like Kilkenny. Like, for me, I'd like you've probably seen this better where you were. There was I know Don Logue talked about this in the Sunday game last night. There was an economy about Kilkenny in that they're able to get their scores away. They're able to go from back to front quicker. Clare wanted to play through the hands a little bit more. It took a little bit out of the ball, and therefore would give Kilkenny time to scramble and get players in position and maybe do enough to block that score. And I guess you kind of saw that bear out with the amount of wides that Clare had. But it was a quickness of play and a quickness of thought for Kilkenny that wasn't there for Clare, particularly in that kind of middle section of the game. Yeah,
I thought Adrian Mullen, well, like, if Richie Reid is back playing centre back, and he's just outstanding again. You're talking about keepers. He was the third choice keeper to myself and Owen back in 13 and 14. He has wonderful hands. He has a wonderful distribution in everything he's doing. But Adrian Mullen was just a colossal there. Him being back, I don't know if there's. I would say if you're talking about the Kilkenny team in their pomp, for me, there's 2 players that you'd guarantee will be on the team, and Adrian Mullen would be in there around midfield, fighting with the likes of Rice and Cha and McFenley and the likes of Owen Cody then up front. These 2 lads are just absolute brutes for work rate. Their skill levels, just get 1-8 between the 2 of them. They were phenomenal. Adrian Mullen just sitting back into the pocket. Richie Reid being able to work it out. David Blanchfield was excellent at showing for a lot of ball and then switching the ball into Adrian Mullen. And then he's like telepathic himself, and Owen Cody then spraying that ball into the corner then for Owen to be able to pick it up and work off that. Kilkenny were excellent in what they did, definitely. Second half then, I think they deserve huge credit then for changing up their play once again when Clare got on top of them, to play the ball through the lines to make sure that they were nullifying that wall that was there in the half back line, and then get that ball, try and change up the style of play. But it was some of their hurling in that first half was exceptional. That comes down to, I think, as well, to the familiarity of the actual occasion to get into a lead like that. Someone came out with a stat there yesterday that Tony Kelly, between club and county, has played 9 times in Croke Park in his career, and that was TJ Reid's 56th time in Croke Park yesterday. Like, there is a difference. These lads can settle in, and I think there was that possibly a fear factor with Brian Lohan, and he thought to himself, let's just get to half-time. If we get to half-time, we can power on. And maybe if they'd have got that Mark Rogers goal, the few other points, the one that Eoin Murphy cut over the bar, maybe they would have bet on. Maybe if that ball hadn't been turned over by Rory Hayes, Clare would have won. They were just fierce unlucky yesterday with a few decisions that went against them.
Would you regard one of those unlucky decisions when Colm Lyons blew it up early, seemingly anyway, and it didn't allow that goal to transpire, because scores would have been level at that point if that had have materialised as a goal. From that point on, Clare do take a 2-point lead, but then Kilkenny don't look back then after that Owen Cody goal, and it seems like a game-changing decision from that point onwards.
Yeah, but the whistle was gone. Like, you can clearly hear it, even in the stadium. You could hear the whistle was gone. I looked up the advantage rule before I came on the show, because I figured you might be chatting about it. And it's kind of simple. If after 5 seconds the play has, or basically there's no sign of any advantage to the team. Now, Hugh Lawler was going to catch the ball. He blew the whistle after that. So when Hugh Lawler goes to touch it and goes to kind of basically rise, the whistle goes, and Hugh then kind of stops. And Eoin Murphy doesn't really put in any effort stopping the ball. Like, if that whistle doesn't go, do you honestly think Eoin Murphy would stop the bouncing ball straight at him in the game after pulling off the save that he did? So I just don't buy that one. I think there might be a few other things that you might be able to look at in the game, but for me, once the whistle goes, instinctively you just stop. And you can clearly see that Hugh Lawler did, you can clearly see Eoin Murphy did. So the thing was, that was after happening. Then you have the Owen Cody incident, then which coming in along the end line. The referee plays advantage. Quilligan pulls off an outstanding save. The ball goes up in the air, and then the referee blows it, basically for advantage. Now, unfortunately, John Conlon nearly gets decapitated by Tom Phelan in that instance, and then the Clare people are really pissed off then. So then that's kind of two advantage decisions that haven't gone their way. And then you have the Wally Wells kind of people are talking about the dive. So there's just a few things that people were extremely aggravated. I definitely would. Well, I know people say you're basically a Kilkenny man anyway, you'd say it. But I think once the whistle goes, Hugh Lawler stops. It's within the 5 seconds. The referee did nothing wrong. Hugh Lawler catches that ball and no one says anything.
You can kind of see Eoin Murphy stop, to be fair. I know they were like breaking it down and showing when the whistle went and who's moving when and where at that particular instance. But like when you do see that camera shot from behind the goal, there's a static Eoin Murphy between the posts. Yes. And I think that kind of speaks volumes towards that. As regards Clare, getting to semi-finals in back-to-back years, this year's performance obviously was a lot better than previous years. Is there a sense in saying, okay, fair enough, this is their level, there's actually no shame in being one of the best four counties in the country in back-to-back years? You're just up against two pretty exceptional teams, and in this case it just happens to be Kilkenny in back-to-back years, because I don't think they can look back on this year with a huge, and yesterday in particular, with a huge amount of regret, can they?
No, unless they listen to the voices outside the camp wondering why you're playing with a sweeper and all that. And again, I'd be a little bit confused of the Tony Kelly, the positioning of him. Just even near the end, when there was a free in, when Clare needed a goal and Tony Kelly was back centre back, I was kind of thinking, I understand you're trying to pull Mikey Butler into an area where he doesn't feel comfortable, but it just seems to me like the further up the field Mikey Butler is, the happier he is. Like, he set up Owen Cody for that one of the last points. He was a man possessed there again in his attacking style. But Clare are the exact same as kind of Limerick and Kilkenny. They're very, very unfortunate with just their shot selection, their efficiency in front of the goal. In that game in the Munster final last year, in the Munster final this year, they easily could have won. They're just so close to getting over the line. I suppose the only thing is time is running slightly out for the likes of Tony Kelly, who's heading into his 30s, and Shane O'Donnell as well. There is really kind of only one crack of it now over the next few years, because those kind of generational players like Tony Kelly and Shane O'Donnell and a few others, those lads will move on. Like, you would feel that next year is really kind of make or break for them. Otherwise, then you have the likes of Cork that are going to come thundering through. Then once again, you're going to have the likes of Tipperary. I'm sure will never be as bad as they are. And then again, you again Waterford with Davy in kind of year two. You would think it's going to be very, very difficult for them if they don't win it next year. I can see that kind of boat sailing then for them.
Hurling, it is anyone's game. Off the Ball has teamed up with senior hurling championship sponsors Bord Gáis Energy to uncover stories highlighting the positive impact hurling has had on people's lives. For full competition details, you can visit www.bordgaisenergy.ie/BGEGAA. David, stay where you are. I want to talk Saturday's game with you as well just after this. We're looking back on the weekend's All-Ireland hurling semi-finals. Kilkenny Clare is in the books, and it was Limerick 224, Galway 118 on Saturday night. Looked like it could have been a much different game, particularly as they approached half time at Croke Park on Saturday, with Galway looking like they really could put a number on the All-Ireland champions. But it is Limerick who are back in another final. David Herity joins us to look back on that game. A lot of people talking about the tactics and those used by Henry Shefflin, particularly in the second half by Galway on Saturday evening, David. And you do look at that first half performance, and wonder why it was that Henry saw fit to essentially just leave one man up, bring Colin Mannion and Colin Whelan back out of the game, because they were causing untold damage to that Limerick defence on Saturday evening, particularly in the first half.
They were all over the place. Brian Concannon was absolutely outstanding. It was just, I couldn't get my head around why Limerick weren't trying to shut him down or how he was given the freedom of the park. I thought he was outstanding. Galway were all over him, but the thing is, you're wondering how much effort and energy it is to kind of come up against a team like Limerick. I don't think physically Galway are near where they're at up front with the likes of all these are outstanding players. I'll throw that in there before, but like Tom Monaghan and Evan Nyland, Kevin Cooney, Collins who came on, even Fahy there. I think physically they look like they're still developing, and they're still quite young lads as far as their age profile as well. I think myself that they're just, if you're hitting against the likes of Will O'Donoghue and Donovan, and you're hitting against obviously Keane Lynch, Christ, he nearly killed that in the first half. You know, you're coming up against Gerard Hegarty, Kyle Hayes. That's bound to take it out of you, and eventually you're going to wear a team down. They're just, again, on top of that, they had absolutely no luck with the Mike Casey save, which he hasn't a clue where the ball is, and yet it just somehow it hits off the hurl. How he even had the hurl in the position that he did is beyond me. He doesn't even have it in a ready position to try and make a control. It's just lying on the ground and the ball hits off it. But they're wearing you down. Limerick are wearing you down, and a bit like Clare in the Munster final, they'll actually give you a chance. They'll give you a chance to actually beat them. The killer thing is you have to win a half time. I would think about 5 points up plus, in order to give you that bit of breathing space in the second half when that inevitable onslaught comes on, that you have that bit of a cushion. The thing was, Clare had that Mark Rogers, Nicky Quaid saved off him in the Munster final, so they didn't have that 5 points. And again, they're the last day. If that goal goes in, everyone's talking about Nicky Quaid and whatever tactics or whatever way you want to talk about it. It still doesn't stop the fact that if Brian Concannon's goal goes into the back of the net, they're 8 points up in the 31st minute, and then no one's talking about Quaid. So they just didn't have that bit of luck. They seemed to didn't have, possibly before half time, they changed around their tactics and possibly wanted to win maybe 4 points up at half time and have that cushion, but Limerick just kept going and going and going, and they were just relentless up until half time. And to put in all that effort and just be 1 point up against Limerick, knowing the juggernaut that's going to come. And again, even at this stage, I often find that people are probably afraid of Limerick, that there's a little bit in their head, like, what are they going to do in the second half? Like, everyone's talking about Connacht as if he is, and I have no doubt that he's an absolute genius, and what Caroline Curd is doing is absolutely genius, and it's psyching him up. Even they came out 70 seconds after Galway, and Brendan Cummins talking about Caroline Curd, and that's definitely what she's doing. They're playing mind games. There's such an aura about Limerick that everyone just feels that they have every single answer at the moment. And that's, but I do think Kilkenny are a team that just don't buy into that BS, to be honest with you. I don't. What I'm trying to say now is that I don't think that there's anything too magical about what Limerick are doing. People have just built up these stories, and that's why I just think Kilkenny, the mindset that they have, the fact that they've played in All-Irelands, the fact that a lot of lads have won them there, I don't think they'll buy into them. I just think that they'll have full belief, especially after only getting back by 2 points last year in the All-Ireland final, that they'll be well able to compete with them and beat them in a final, have the ability to beat them, and that's why I think it's going to be an absolute cracking final.
We'll get back to the final in a moment. There's a couple of things in Saturday's game that, you know, obviously drew everybody's attention. The Nicky Quaid incident, what was it, 10 minutes to go to half time or just a little bit before that, where he had his helmet off. It's seemingly a contact lens issue, or possibly a contact with the heads issue. There's talk of gamesmanship, and I know David Fitzgerald has called this out this morning as well. What did you make of that? Because obviously you're in a special position, being a former goalkeeper, being a goalkeeper, to know about these things. That came at a very necessary time for Limerick to take the sting out of the game, to take the momentum, and Shefflin has pretty much admitted it did as much, take the momentum away from Galway in that particular instance. What was your makings of it?
Everyone's doing it. You look at Eoin Murphy did it when Jason Flynn got a goal in the Leinster final. He went down, ball went into his right hand side, and he took the helmet off, and there was nothing said. You know, Sean Brennan did it against Galway against Dublin. Galway got the goal, and Sean Brennan took the helmet off there as well. You look at Amy Lee in the Camogie yesterday; she took the helmet off. She, and went with the contacts there again. So everyone's doing it except Limerick do it better, and I think everyone's just pissed off because they do it better. When any team, if a team gets a run on you, you always have kind of your couple of lads designated to go down. Every team should. Doesn't if you don't, you're ill prepared, to be honest with you. You have a lad to go down, but then when someone goes down, generally nothing happens from the management side of things. Like you start roaring at a few lads, and you might get a few players to kind of talk to each other, but very little information is put in when you're kind of watching teams. When their designated player goes down, very little information goes in. Limerick, however, take this opportunity to call over Peter Casey, to get the words into him. He spreads the words out, and they change up the formation, and they crowd midfield. That's the difference between Limerick. They just don't do something for the sake of doing it. Everything is a structure. Everything is put in place. They have all these plans in place. The big surprising thing for me is, why didn't Galway do it then? When Limerick started getting on top, just to get into half time, they're after scoring maybe 4 points in a row. They're just coming up to half time. Why didn't they just put someone down and basically try and just drag it out to half time, waste a minute or two? I just think there's a lot of people online pissed off because Limerick are doing everything better than them.
When you say designated, like, we obviously don't know if Limerick do or don't do that, but when you say that every team has a designated player, like, is that chosen in training? Is that chosen at a certain point in the season? Is that a tactic that will be reminded of the players just before a game, before you go out?
None of the teams I'm involved with, but you would, yeah. It has to be an intelligent lad that's going to go down. Like, you can't just have, and again, you can't have a corner forward going down. If they obviously, you want a lad going down when they're after scoring. So no one cares about the corner forward. Everyone's just looking up this way. But even just say you saw the Clare footballers, the fullback, I forget his name, his fullback went down. The referee came over and gave him a yellow card for going down against Roscommon. Like, it can't be the fullback either, because it's a case of, we can play on without you. John Donnelly went down yesterday, and Colin Lyons went, no, get up. It has to be the goalkeeper. But it can be one other lad, but it has to be an instant. There has to be some sort of a physical contact that actually happens. But it has to be an intelligent lad in the team. You can't just, otherwise you have some lad going down and you're kind of going, what are you going down for? Like, it actually takes a very intelligent lad to kind of cop on. We've conceded 3 points. The run of play is going against us, or whatever, 4 points. I need to go down there at this stage. Otherwise, you just have anyone dropping down. In one game this year, even the Galway goal that went in against Dublin, the cornerback went down and Sean Brennan went down. So his lads just dropping. Obviously, everyone was just panicking and going, geez, Galway are after getting a goal. Let's just hit the ground. And it just looked like someone offloaded a grenade. So it has to be clever, and it has to be timed what you're doing. And then you have to make sure, if someone does go down, what are we going to do? Yeah. Do the players get together in a little huddle? Does the centre forward gather in the six forwards and go, clearly they're after scoring a lot, we need to work harder, we need to kind of come deeper here for the ball, whatever it is. But it's important that you're not just falling down for the sake of it. Have a plan put in place for it.
We're obviously having a bit of a joke around it, but there is a serious side issue to it, in that there are head injuries that obviously come into play, and there's a lot of duty of care around players if they do suffer a genuine head injury. This kind of stuff, I'm not saying Nicky Quaid's necessarily on Saturday is exactly that, because we don't know the nature of why he was taking the helmet off. It did seem to be around his eyes, but there is a concern around head injuries, particularly at the moment. You don't want to see laws around that stretched and to the point where everyone is suspect then if they go down with a knock to the head.
That's why they go with the whole concussion thing, or sorry, not concussion, the contact lens thing, because you can't. What I'd actually love if the referee just goes into the goalkeeper for the match, and normally a referee does come in and how are you doing? Don't take the puck out before the whistle goes. Don't step outside the square. The usual crack. They tell you those two things. But I'd love if they just ask the question: do you wear contact lenses for the match? And then kind of if the goalkeeper says no, you're like, right, that's that excuse out of the way. You clearly cannot go down with a contact lens injury. Fair enough. If you do, whatever, we'll have to give the fullback has to take the puck out. But you're right in what you're saying. So many people are diving nowadays to try and get, there's a few things, either to waste time to try and get lads yellow carded or sent off, or else they're trying to obviously kill the momentum of the opposition team. But it's a disease that is absolutely ripping through hurling at the moment. This whole feigning injury and going down and taking dives, it is just all over the place in the GAA, and we've obviously seen it just this year. We had a couple of lads sent off there this year for our own team with Clare, and again, when you look back in it, you see very little instance is going on, but it's just teams are clever enough. They understand how valuable an extra player is nowadays on your team, and the cutthroat nature of everything is just the fact that you'll do anything you can to win. So, but I agree with you, concussion, it's going to take one of these days. A referee, unfortunately, is going to call someone's bluff and think, no, there's nothing wrong with you, and try and get him up or whatever, and there's going to be an instance the way things are going at the moment.
I think you've just ensured that every goalkeeper, if that question is ever asked, does say, yes, I do actually wear contact lenses, Your Honour. On the final itself, I know we'll probably get into deeper detail about it closer to the event in just under a fortnight's time. But you mentioned there that Kilkenny won't be afraid of Limerick in the same way that other teams possibly have been so far this season, and Limerick certainly, Galway it seems certainly were on Saturday. This is a final played without fear, and I think that's what makes it all the more attractive.
Yeah, and they don't have a massive amount of baggage either. Like they're not playing against them in Munster Championships year in, year out. They played them last year in the All-Ireland final. They played them again in 19 and they bet them. So if you're looking at the last two times they played each other, it's one each, and this is kind of the next battle. So again, if you look at the biggest thing for me was why I thought Kilkenny would win yesterday is their bench. To have the likes of Richie Hogan to bring on Wally Welsh, Killian Buckley, Pádraig Welch, and obviously then Cian Kenny, and then you have the likes of Billy Drennan didn't even get on the field there yesterday. Kilkenny have an incredible bench that if again the muck is hitting the fan, they can head to that bench. They have the confidence, and then even the way Owen Cody spoke about these lads, seeing a Wally Welch coming onto the field, or seeing a Richie Hogan, and the lads I just mentioned there coming onto the field, that's going to give you some burst of energy rather than some rookie young lad who's maybe 21, who has done very little, who's never won All-Ireland. These lads have all won it on the biggest stage before, have put in serious performances for Kilkenny over the space of the last 10 years. So I think it's the fact that Kilkenny have that bench to be able to equal when Limerick bring on the Graham O'Cahies or they bring on Cathal O'Neills, that Kilkenny have a panel there to actually match them. And the brilliant thing is that Derek Ling has shown in the last two games he's not afraid to bring on the players. He has trust in the bench. The bench now know that 20 lads probably are guaranteed that they're going to play in the final. Possibly in other years that might have been one of the things that was set up against Brian, that he would wait until the game was pretty much over before he bring on someone at times in a final. But Derek Ling definitely has trust in the actual subs bench. That's why I think Kilkenny have a great chance right up until the final minute, that they have game changers there.
A great chance, but can they beat them?
I do. Like last year when we were all talking about it, whether they'd beat Limerick, everyone was like, they have a great chance. There's a lot of there was a lot of hope in everyone's voice. Like, everyone was going up for a good old battle, but I don't think anyone really and truly believed last year. I would be amazed if people don't have that inner belief, proper belief there this year. And I'd say with the panel of players there as well, even with the management team there behind them, I'd be amazed if they're not absolutely buzzing, and that there's not a whole different level of real kind of inner belief, even within the team. Just that togetherness just seems to be so evident within the Kilkenny squad there. The way that they celebrate after the Leinster final, again, the way they were out in the field, I'd be 100%. If you look at Owen Cody, you ever listen to him in an interview after the game, the man is absolutely wired. Like, he fully believes. It's like someone is constantly in his ear, pissing him off, thinking that they're all saying this about you, Owen. You realise they're all saying this about you, and saying this about Leinster and saying this about Kilkenny. Like, in his interviews afterwards, he's so bloody passionate. He's like, him as captain, Derek Ling as manager, with that panel of players, I wouldn't see any reason why Kilkenny wouldn't be. Limerick is my slight favourites, but Kilkenny with a great chance.